When you hear the phrase traditional Chinese medicine, what pops into your head? Ancient herbs, maybe acupuncture. Is it just some kind of alternative therapy? Well, what if it's way, way more than that? What if it's a 5,000-year-old medical system holding secrets that modern science is only just now starting to figure out? Let's dig into that idea, and we're going to start with a really powerful personal story. So listen to this. This comes from Dr. Jin K. Wang, who's a scientist over at MIT. When he was just a kid, he got a benign tumor on his face. The Western doctors he saw basically said, look, surgery is the only option, which of course would have left a scar. But then his mom took him to a traditional doctor. She asked some really careful questions and then prescribed a simple herbal remedy. And get this, 2 weeks later, the tumor was just gone. So what on earth happened there? Was it some kind of magic? Or was it the result of knowledge that's been gathered and tested and refined for literally millennia? To get to the bottom of that, we have to go way back in time. Okay, let's start at the very beginning. To really get your head around traditional Chinese medicine, or TCM, you can't think of it as some mystical art. You have to think of it as one of the longest, most massive clinical trials in all of human history. I mean, think about our early ancestors, right? They figured out medicine through pure, hard-won trial and error. They'd eat a plant, and hey, maybe it settled their stomach. They'd try another, and maybe it helped with a fever. This wasn't just random guessing. It was this slow, careful accumulation of data, passed down from one generation to the next. And eventually, all this oral knowledge started getting written down by these brilliant figures, absolute giants of ancient medicine. You have people like Shen Nang, known as the Divine Farmer, who was the first to categorize hundreds of medicinal plants. And then there's Li Shizhen, who spent over 30 years putting together the ultimate encyclopedia of herbal medicine, and he actually tasted many of the herbs himself, almost dying in the process. Talk about dedication. And here's what's so fascinating. The core principle these ancient doctors followed was, well, science. They carefully recorded their materials, their methods, and their results so that other people could get the same outcome. Observation, documentation, reproducibility. Sound familiar? It should. That's the bedrock of the modern scientific method. Now, of course, the way they understood the body was totally different. They didn't have microscopes or gene sequencers, so instead, they came up with these really sophisticated philosophical models, like the five elements theory. You can think of it like an operating system for the body to map out all the relationships. So, for example, if a patient was dealing with constant anger, a TCM doctor might see that as an imbalance in the wood element, which they connected to the liver. The treatment wouldn't just be for the anger, it would be to restore balance to that entire system. And hey, this kind of thinking wasn't just happening in China. You look over at medieval Europe, and their medicine was all about balancing the four humors, blood, phlegm, and all that. These were all these pre-modern ways of trying to create a logical system for this incredibly complex machine we call the human body. Okay, so we've got this ancient system built on observation and philosophy. But why did any of it actually work? The answer to that isn't in philosophy. It's in biology and chemistry. Just put yourself in a plant's shoes for a second. You're literally stuck in one place. You can't run away from a deer that wants to eat you. You can't move into the shade on a hot day. You can't fight off bacteria with a fancy immune system like ours. So what do you do to survive? You turn to chemistry. Over millions and millions of years, plants evolved into the most brilliant chemical factories on the entire planet, cooking up a massive arsenal of molecules to defend themselves. And in doing so, they basically created a giant natural pharmacy for all of us. And don't for a second think this is just ancient history. Even today, with all of our incredible technology, more than a quarter of all modern medicines come from plants. We're talking about things like morphine, the painkiller from the poppy, or even cutting-edge cancer drugs from the yew tree. We are still borrowing from nature's chemical lab. So, this brings us to a really crucial point. We've got two totally different ways of looking at medicine. One is ancient, built on thousands of years of human trial and error. The other is modern, built on about a century of molecular science. And right now, they're finally starting to meet. Dr. Wang has this perfect analogy for this. He says it's like two teams digging a tunnel through a mountain, but from opposite sides. Traditional medicine has been digging for millennia with one set of tools. Modern science started digging about 100 years ago with a completely different set. For a long, long time, they couldn't hear each other. But now, they're getting close. They're starting to hear the faint taps from the other side. They're about to break through and meet right in the middle, at the truth. And the story of artemisinin is the perfect example of that breakthrough. So back in the 1970s, a Chinese scientist named Tu Youyou was trying to find a cure for malaria. She started digging through all these ancient medical texts and found a 1600-year-old clue from a scholar named Ge Hong. He mentioned a specific plant for treating fevers. But here was the real kicker. The instructions said to use a cold water extraction. It turns out the active compound was destroyed by heat, so by following that ancient recipe, she isolated artemisinin. It has since become one of the most important anti-malarial drugs on the planet. It saved millions of lives, and it won her the Nobel Prize. The tunnel broke through. This coming together of two worlds, it isn't just about proving the past was right, it's about building the future of medicine. And this is where the ancient wisdom of TCM becomes incredibly relevant for the biggest health problems we face today. You see, the modern drug model is pretty simple. Find one specific target, like, say, a single enzyme that a bacteria needs, and then design one magic bullet drug to hit that one target. And honestly, it's been amazingly successful for a lot of things. But that one target, one drug model is now hitting a wall when it comes to today's biggest killers, these super complex diseases like Alzheimer's or diabetes that aren't caused by one broken part, but by a whole system going haywire. But, and this is the amazing part, the core ideas of TCM are exactly where modern medicine is trying to go. Things like treating the whole system, not just the symptom, using multi-target herbal formulas instead of a single magic bullet, and personalizing treatment for each individual. All these cutting-edge ideas in modern science, genomics, systems biology, personalized medicine, are in a way just a high-tech rediscovery of a holistic wisdom that's thousands of years old. So it really leaves us with this fascinating final question. We're now living in an age where we have artificial intelligence that can scan every ancient text ever written, and we have genomic sequencers that can map out every chemical a plant can make. By combining our incredible modern technology with thousands of years of human wisdom, what other life-saving secrets have been hiding in plain sight all this time, just waiting for us to finally start digging in the right place?